about that. Forgot I was muted. Let me lower my volume slightly. There we go. Yo, hope y'all are doing that good today. Hope y'all have been chilling. Oh wait, sorry, 1 second. I want to make sure that see how long I put the lag on for my chat box. Sorry about that. 1 second. I was messing with it last night. Oh, but I think I might need to move it to a different side. Okay, 25 seconds. Yeah, that's fine. It should go then. Should be no problem. Sorry about that. There we go. Sorry, still figuring out everything myself. Ay, ay, ay. Oh, actually, let me see if I can move that over a little bit. 1 second, please. Yep, there we go. Let's move that there. That'll work out. I'll figure it out later. Not a big deal, not a big deal. Now, where was I? Close that. Actually, no, make sure that technical difficulties wouldn't be a proper stream without scuff. It's fine, it's fine. There we go. That's better. Yo, hope y'all are having a fine night. It's currently, well, as you can see up there, it's past midnight, so it's getting late, but back home it's about 9 p.m., 9:20, so I'm not too late. I wouldn't say so. But I hope y'all have had a lovely day so far. Hope your evening is going well. Hope it's been rather chill. But yeah. So, oh, sorry, I'm completely losing myself. Oh, bloody hell, I'm losing my goddamn sanity, man. Where was I? Yes. So yeah, I've had quite the day today. So I figured, what's a good way to decompress? Doing some reading. It's been a while since I've read some fine stories. So I figured, as per the season, I might read some horror stories. So I have a classic like spooky, scary literature that I could read. Some of them are older, some of them are classics. As you can tell by the book I'm reading right now, The Casa of Amontillado. It's a classic story. So I figured, yeah, I might as well read that. But I also have two others that I will be reading along, depending on how long I want to go for. I don't know how fast I will get through everything, but yeah, if any of y'all are want, oh, sorry, scratch my ear. There we go. That's better. Yeah, if there's anyone who's tuning in, feel free to stop by. Feel free to just have me in the background while I read. You could use this as, I don't know, some kind of pseudo ASMR type beat. I don't fully know. Yeah, I haven't really done too many reading streams, but it's just something to chill to. But yeah, don't really have much else to add to it. So yeah, might as well just get into the stories. I have my first one here, The Casa of Amontillado. Now this is a classic story by the famous poet Edgar Allan Poe. If you've seen on YouTube, I have read one of his most famous works, The Raven. But this is another one that leans more into the horror aspect of his work, and I feel is pretty well done. So, might as well get into it. Without further ado, here is The Casa of Amontillado. 1,000 entries of Fortunato I had borne as best I could, but when he ventured upon insult, I vowed revenge. You, who so well know the nature of my soul, will not suppose, however, that I gave utterance to a threat. At length I would be avenged. This was a point definitely settled, but there was a definitiveness with which it was resolved precluded the idea of risk. I must not only punish, but punish with impunity. A wrong is undressed when retribution takes over its redresser. It is equally unredressed with the avenger when I'm sorry, I am not professional at this. It is equally unredressed when the avenger fails to make himself felt as such to him who has done the wrong. It must be understood that neither by word nor deed had I given Fortunato cause to doubt my goodwill. I continued, as was my wont, as my wont. Ah, thank you for following, Dave. The Babe69, lovely name. Thanks for stopping by. Appreciate that. Where was I? Uh, buddy, I lost my place in the book. I'll just like start the section. A wrong is unredressed when retribution overtakes its redresser. It is equally unredressed when the avenger fails to make himself felt as such to him who has done the wrong. It must be understood that neither by word nor deed had I given Fortunato cause to doubt my goodwill. I continued, as was my wont, to smile in his face, and he did not perceive that my smile, now, was at the thought of his immolation. He had a weak point, this Fortunato. Although in other regards he was a man to be respected and even feared, he prided himself on his connoisseurship in wine. Few Italians have the true virtuoso spirit. For the most part their enthusiasm is adopted to suit the time and opportunity, to practice imposture upon the British and the Austrian millionaires, in painting and gambling. Fortunato, like his countrymen, was a quack, but in the matter of old wines he was sincere. In this respect, I did not differ from his maternally. I was skillful in the Italian vintages myself, and brought largely whenever I could. It was about dusk one evening, during the supreme madness of the Carnival season, that I encountered my friend. He accosted me with excessive warmth, for he had been drinking much. The man wore motley. He had on tight-fitting, partially striped dress, and his head was surmounted by the conical cap and bells. I was so pleased to see him that I thought I should never have done the wringing his hand. I said to him, "My dear Fortunato, you are luckily met. How remarkably well you are looking today. But I had received a pipe for what passes for amontillado, and I have my doubts." "How?" he said. "Amontillado? A pipe? Impossible! And in the middle of the carnival!" "I have my doubts," I replied, "and I was silly enough to pay the full amontillado price without consulting you in the matter. You were not to be found, and I was fearful of losing a bargain." "Amontillado! I have my doubts." "Amontillado! And I must satisfy them." "Amontillado! As you are enraged, I am on my way to the Lucchesi. If any has one critical turn, it is he. He will tell me, 'Lucchesi cannot tell Amontillado from Sherry.' And yet some fools will have it that his taste is a match for your own. Come, let us go." "Whither?" "To your vaults." "My friend, no, I will not impose upon your good nature." Sorry, let me just adjust. Here we go. "My friend, no, I will not impose upon your good nature. I perceive you have an engagement. Lucchesi, I have no engagement. Come." "My friend, no. It is not the engagement, but the severe cold with which I perceive you are afflicted. The vaults are insufferably damp. They are encrusted with nitre. Let us go, nevertheless. The cold is merely nothing. Amontillado, you have been imposed upon. As for Lucchesi, he cannot distinguish Sherry from Amontillado." Thus speaking, Fortunato possessed himself on my arm, putting on a mask of black silk and drawing a roquelaire leaf closely about my person. I suffered him to hurry me to the plaza, to the, to the, to the palazzo, to the palazzo. Sorry, I'm not familiar with that. There were no attendants at home. They had absconded to make merry in honor of the time. I had told them that I should not return until the morning, and had given them explicit orders not to stir from the house. These orders were sufficient, and I well know, to ensure their immediate disappearance, one and all, as soon as my back was turned. I took from their scones 2 flambeaux and gave one to Fortunato. I bowed him through several suites of rooms to the archway that led to the vaults. I passed down a long and winding staircase, requesting him to be cautious as he followed. We came at length to the foot of the descent, and stood together on the damp ground of the catacombs of the Vessels. The gait of my friend was unsteady, and the bells upon his cap jingled as he strode. "The pipe," he said. "It is farther on," said I, "but observe the white webwork which gleams from these cavern walls." He turned toward me and looked into my eyes with 2 flimsy orbs that distilled the venom of intoxication. "Nitre?" he asked at length. "Nitre," I replied. "And how long have you had that cough?" poor friend found it impossible to reply for many minutes. It is nothing, he said at last. Come, I said with decision. We will go back. Your health is precious. You are rich, respected, admired, beloved. You are happy, as once was I. You are a man to be missed. For me, it is no matter. We will go back. Your will be ill, and I cannot be responsible. Besides, there is Lucchesi. Enough, he said. The cough is a mere nothing. It will not kill me. I shall not die of a cough. True, true, I replied. And, indeed, I had no intention of alarming you unnecessarily. But you should use all proper caution. A draught of this Medoc will defend us from the damps. Here I knocked off the neck of a bottle which I drew from a long row of its fellows that lay upon the mould. Drink, I said, presenting him the wine. He raised it to his lips with a leer. He paused and nodded to me familiarly while his bells drinkled. I drink, he said, to the berry that repose around us, and I to your long life. He took my arm and we proceeded. These vaults, he said, are extensive. Ah, the Montresors, I replied, were a great and numerous family. I forget your art. A huge human foot door in a field of azure, the foot that crushes a serpent rampant whose fangs are embedded in the heel. And the motto, Nemo mi impune lacet. Good, he said. The wine sparkled in his eyes and the bells jingled. My own fancy grew warm with the Medoc. We had passed through the walls of piled bones, with casks and puncheons intermingled, into the inmost recesses of the catacombs. I paused again, and in this time I made bold to seize Fortunato by an arm above the elbow. The nitre, I said. See, it increases. It hangs like moss above the vaults. We are below the river's bed. The drops of moisture trickle among the bones. Come, we will go back ere it's too late. Your cough. It is nothing, he said. Let us go on. But first, another draught of the Medoc. I broke and reached him a flacon of de Grey. He emptied it at a breath. His eyes flashed with a fierce light. He laughed and threw the bottle upward with a gesticulation I did not understand. I looked at him in surprise. He repeated the movement, a grotesque one. You do not comprehend? He said. Not I replied. Then you are not of the Brotherhood. How? You are not of the Masons. Yes, yes, I said. Yes, yes. You? Impossible. A Mason? A Mason, I replied. A sign, he said. It is this, I answered, producing a trowel from beneath the folds of my roquelaire. You jest, he exclaimed, recalling a few faces. But let us proceed to the amotinado. Be it so, I said, replacing the tool beneath the cloak, and again offering him my arm. He leaned upon it heavily. We continued our route in search of the amotinado. We passed through the range of low arches, descended, passed it on, descended again, arriving at a deep crypt, which the foulness of the air caused our flambeau to rather than which caused our flambeau rather to glow than flame. At the most remote end of the crypt, there appeared another less spacious. Its walls had been lined with human remains, piled to the vault overhead, in the fashion of the great catacombs of Petty. Three sides of this interior crypt were still enormous. Bloody hell, can't speak today, apologies. Three sides of this interior crypt were still ornamented in this manner. From the fourth of bones had been thrown down, and lay promiscuously upon the earth, forming at one point a mound of some size. Within the wall thus exposed by the displacing of the bones, we perceived the still interior recess, in depth about 4 feet, in width 3, and in height 6 or 7. It seemed to have been constructed no especial use within itself, but formed merely the interval between two of the colossus supports by the roof of the catacomb, and was backed by one of their circumscribing walls of solid granite. It was in vain that Fortunato uplifted his dull torch, endeavored to pry into the depth of this recess. Its termination the feeble light did not enable us to see. Proceed, I said. Herein is the Amontillado. As for Lucchesi, he is an ignoramus, interrupted my friend, as he stepped unsteadily forward, while I followed immediately at his heels. In an instant, he had reached the extremity of the niche, and finding his progress arrested by the rock, stood stupidly bewildered. A moment more I had feted him to the granite. In the surface were two iron staples, distinct from each other about 2 feet, horizontally. From one of these depended a short chain, from the other a padlock. Rolling the length about his waist, it was but the work of a few seconds to secure it. He was too much astounded to resist. Withdrawing the key, I stepped back from the recess. Pass your hand, I said. Over the wall, you cannot help feeling the nitre. Indeed, it is very damp. Once more let me implore you to return. No? Then I will positively leave you. But I must first render you all the little attentions in my power. The amontillado! Ejaculated my friend, not yet recovered from his astonishment. True, I replied, the amontillado. As I said these words, As I said these words, I busied myself among the pile of bones of which I have before spoken. Throwing them aside, I soon uncovered a quantity of building stone and mortar. With these materials, and with the aid of my trowel, I began vigorously to wall up the entrance of the niche. As I scarcely laid the first tier of my masonry, when I discovered that the intoxication of Fortunato had in great measure worn off. The earliest indication I had of this was the low morning cry from the depth of the recess. It was not the cry of a drunken man. There was then a long and obstinate silence. I laid the second tier, and then the third, and the fourth, and then I heard the furious vibrations of the chain. The noise lasted for several minutes, during which, that I might hearken to it with the more satisfaction, I ceased my labors, and sat down upon the bones. When at last the clanking subsided, I resumed the trowel, and finished without interruption the fifth, the sixth, and the seventh tier. The wall was now nearly upon that level with my breast. I again paused, and holding the flambeau over the mason work, threw a few feeble rays upon the figure within. A succession of loud and shrill screams bursted suddenly from the throat of the chained form, seemingly to thrust me violently back. For a brief moment, I hesitated. I trembled. Unsheathing my rapier, I began to grope with it about the recess, but the thought of an instant reassured me. I placed my hand upon the solid fabric of the catacombs, and felt relieved. I reapproached the wall. I replied to the yells of him who clamored. I re-echoed. I aided. I surpassed them in volume and in strength. I did this. The clamor grew still. It was now midnight. My task was drawing to a close. I had completed the 8th, the ninth, and the 10th tier. I had finished a portion of the last and the 11th. But there remained but a single stone to be fitted and plastered in. I struggled with its weight. I placed it partially in its destined position. But now there came out from a niche a low laugh that erected the hairs upon my head. It was succeeded by a sad voice, which I had difficulty in recognizing as that of the noble Fortunato. The voice said, "A very good joke indeed, an excellent jest. We will have many a rich laugh about it in the Plazato. Over our wine." "The amontillado," I said. Yes, emotinado. But is it not getting late? We will not be awaiting. Will they not be awaiting us in the plaza? The Lady Fortunato and the rest? Let us be gone. Yes, I said. Let us be gone. For the love of God, Montresor. Yes, I said. For the love of God. But to these words, I hearkened in vain for a reply. I grew impatient and called aloud, Fortunato! No answer. I called again, Fortunato! No answer still. I thrust the torch through the remaining aperture and let it fall within. It came forth in return only a jingling of the bells. My heart grew sick on account of the dampness of the catacombs. I hastened to make an end of my labor. I forced the last stone into its position. I plastered it up. Again, the new masonry, I re-erected the old rampart of bones. For half a century, no mortal has disturbed them. In pace, requisite. That was The Cask of Amontillado. The Cask of Amontillado by Edgar Allan Poe, published in 1846. Bloody hell, that's like over 150 years ago. Uh, definitely very much a classic. Older story, but still very much a classic. Uh, well, that was our first story of the night. Hopefully y'all enjoyed that. But we have one. We are not quite done here today. Oh no no, we still have a few more to go towards. Just give me 1 second while I prepare our second story. 1 second. I hope y'all have had a lovely day so far. Hope y'all are relaxing now. Hope y'all have been able to chill. 1 second. 1 second. Do 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 do. Nearly there. Nearly there. There we go. Might have to adjust it on my screen slightly, but yep. Let me just shorten that a little bit. Actually, let me just 1 second. Let me just adjust that. There we go. That's better. There we go. Yep, that works. All right. Our second story of this, I'm not going to say cursed night, but of this quaint, quiet night. Yes, that fits. We will be reading the story Where Are You Going? Where Have You Been? By Joyce Carol Oates. Now, I have heard of this story before, but I have actually not read it myself, so this will be the first time for both of us. But relax, grab a hot beverage, and let us begin with our second story. Where are you going? Where have you been? Her name was Connie. She was 15 and actually 1 second. Let's adjust the model. See. Yep, that should do. Apologies. Her name was Connie. She was 15 and she had a quick, nervous, giggling habit of craning her neck to glance into mirrors or checking other people's faces to make sure her own was all right. Her mother, who noticed everything and knew everything and who hadn't much reason any longer to look at her own face, always scolded Connie about it. Stop gawking at yourself. Who are you? You think you're so pretty? She would say. Connie would raise her eyebrows at these familiar old complaints and look right through her mother, into a shadowy vision of herself as she was right at that moment. She knew she was pretty, and that was everything. Her mother had been pretty once too, if you could believe those old snapshots in the album, but now her looks were gone, and that was why she was always after Connie. Why don't you keep your room clean like your sister? How have you got your hair fixed? What the hell stinks? Hairspray? You don't see your sister using this junk. Her sister, June, was 24 and still lived at home. She was a secretary at the high school that Connie attended, and if that wasn't bad enough, with her in the same building, she was so plain and chunky and steady that Connie had to hear her praised all the time by her mother and her mother's sisters. June did this, June did that. She saved money and helped clean the house and cook when Connie couldn't do a thing. Her mind was all filled with trashy daydreams. Her father was always at work most of the time, and when he came home, he wanted supper, and he read the newspaper at supper, and after supper, he went to bed. He didn't bother talking much to them, but around his bent head, Connie's mother kept picking at her until Connie wished her mother was dead, and she herself was dead, and it was all over. She makes me want to throw up sometimes, she complained to her friends. She had a high, breathless, amused voice that made everything sound, she said, sound a little forced, whether it was sincere or not. There was one good thing. June went places with girlfriends of hers, girls who were just as plain and steady as she. So when Connie wanted to do that, her mother had no objection. The father of Connie's best girlfriend drove the girls 3 miles to town and left them at the shopping plaza so they could walk through the stores or go to a movie. And when he came to pick them up again at 11, he never bothered to ask what they have done. They must have been familiar sights, walking around the shopping plaza in their shorts and flat ballerina slippers that always scuffed the sidewalk. With charm bracelets jingling on their thin wrists, they would lean together to whisper and laugh secretly if someone who passed them amused them or interested them. Connie had long, dark blonde hair that drew everyone's eyes to it, and she wore part of it pulled up on her head and puffed out, and the rest of it she let fall back down onto her back. She wore a pullover jersey blouse that looked one way when she was at home and another way when she was away from home. Everything about her had two sides to it, one for home and one for everywhere that was not home. Her walk, which could be childish and bobbing, or languid enough to make anyone think she was hearing music in her head. Her mouth, which was pale and smirking most of the time, but bright and pink on these evenings out. Her laugh, which was cynical and drawling at home. Ha ha, very funny, but high-pitched and nervous everywhere else, like the jingling of the charms on her bracelet. Sometimes they did go shopping or to a movie, but sometimes they went across the highway, ducking fast across the busy road to a drive-in restaurant where older kids hung out. The restaurant was shaped like a big bottle, though squatter than a real bottle, and on its cab was a revolving figure of a grinning boy holding a hamburger aloft. On a night in midsummer, they ran across, breathless with daring, and right away someone leaned out of a car window and invited them over. But it was just a boy from the high school that they didn't like. It made them feel good being able to ignore him. They went up through the maze of parked and cruising cars to the bright-lit, fly-infested restaurant, their faces pleased and expectant as if they were entering a sacred building that loomed up out of the night to give them to give them what haven and blessing they yearned for. They sat at the counter and crossed their legs at the ankle, their thin shoulders rigid with excitement, and listening to the music that made everything so good. The music was always in the background, like music at a church service. It was something to depend on. A boy named Eddie came in to talk with them. He sat backwards on his stool, turning himself jerkily around in semicircles and then stopping and turning back again. After a while, he asked Connie if she would like something to eat. She said she would, so she tapped her friend's arm and on her way out. Her friend pulled her face up in a brave, raw look, and Connie said that she would meet her at 11. Across the way, sorry. I just hate to leave her like that, Connie said earnestly, but the boy said she wouldn't be alone for long. So they went out to his car, and on the way, Connie couldn't help but let her eyes wander over the windshield and faces all around her face gleaming with a joy that had nothing to do with Eddie or even this place. It might have been the music. She drew her shoulders up and sucked in her breath, and with the pure pleasure of being alive, and just at that moment, she happened to glance at a face just a few feet from hers. It was a boy with shaggy black hair and a convertible jalopy painted gold. He stared at her, and then his lips widened into a grin. Connie slid her eyes at him and turned away, but she couldn't help glancing back, and there he was, still watching her. He wagged a finger and laughed and said, "Gonna get you, baby." And Connie turned away again, without Eddie noticing anything. She spent 3 hours with him at the restaurant where they ate hamburgers, drank Coke in wax cups that were always sweating, and then down an alley a mile or so away. And when he left her off at 5 to 11, only the when he dropped her off at 5 to 11, only the movie house was open at the plaza. Her girlfriend was there, talking with a boy. When Connie came up, the two girls smiled at each other. Connie said, "How was the movie?" And the girl said, "You should know." They rode off with the girl's father, sleepy and pleased, and Connie couldn't help but look back at the darkened shopping plaza with its big empty parking lot and its signs that were faded and ghostly. And over at the drive-in restaurant where cars were still circling tirelessly, she couldn't hear the music at this distance. Next morning, June asked her how the movie was, and Connie said, so-so. She and that girl, and occasionally another girl, went out several times a week, and the rest of the time, Connie spent around the house. There was summer vacation, getting in her mother's way and thinking, dreaming about the boy she met. But all the boys fell back and dissolved into a single face that was not even a face, an idea, a feeling, mixed up with the urgent, insistent pounding of the music and humid night air of July. Connie's mother kept dragging her back to the daylight by finding things for her to do, or saying suddenly, "What's this about the parting girl?" Connie would say nervously, "Oh, her, that dope." She always drew thick, clear lines between herself and such girls, and her mother was simple and kind enough to believe it. Her mother was so simple, Connie thought, that it was maybe cruel to fool her so much. Her mother went scuffling around the house in old bedroom slippers, complaining over the telephone to one sister about the other, and then the other called up and the two of them complained about the third one. If June's name was mentioned, her mother's tone was approving, and if Connie's name was mentioned, it was disapproving. This did not really mean that she disliked Connie, and actually Connie thought that her mother preferred her to June just because she was prettier. But the two of them kept up a pretense of exasperation, a sense that they were tugging and struggling over something of little value to each other. Sometimes, over coffee, they were almost friends, but something would come up, some vexation that was like a fly buzzing suddenly around their heads, and their faces went hard with contempt. One Sunday, Connie got up at 11. None of them bothered with church, and she washed her hair so that it could dry all day long in the sun. Her parents and sister were going to a barbecue at an aunt's house, and Connie said no, she wasn't interested, rolling her eyes to let her mother know just what she thought of it. "Stay home alone, then," her mother said sharply. Connie sat out back in the lawn chair, watching them drive away. Her father, quiet and bald, hunched over so that he could back the car up. Her mother with a look that was still angry and not at all softened with the windshield, and in the back seat, poor old June, all dressed up as if she didn't know what a barbecue was. With all the running kids, yeah, right, with all the running, yelling kids and the flies, Connie sat with her eyes closed in the sun, dreaming and dazed with the warmth about her, as if this were a kind of love, the caress of love, and her mind slipped into over onto thoughts of the boy that she had been with the night before, and how nice he had been, how sweet it always was. Not the way someone like June would suppose, but sweet, gentle, the way it was in movies and promising songs. And when she opened her eyes, she hardly knew where she was. The backyard ran off into weed and a fence-like line of trees, and behind it, the sky was perfectly blue and still. The asbestos ranch house that was now 3 years old startled her. It looked small. She shook her head as if to get away. It was too hot. She went inside the house and turned on the radio to drown out the quiet. She sat at the edge of her bed, barefoot, and listened for about an hour and a half to a program called XYZ, Sunday Jamboree. Record after record of hard, fast, shrieking songs. She sang along with and interspersed with exclamations from Bobby King. And look here, you girls at Neapolitans, Son and Shirley want you to pay real close attention to this song coming up. And Connie paid close attention herself, bathed regularly in this glow of slow post-joy that seemed to rise mysteriously out of the music itself and lay languidly about the airless little room. Breathed in and breathed out, with each gentle rise and fall of her chest. After a while, she heard a car coming up the drive. She sat up at once, startled, but it couldn't be her father, so soon. The gravel kept crunching all the way in from the road. The driveway was long, and Connie ran at the window. It was a car she didn't know. It was an open jalopy, painted a bright gold that caught the sunlight opaquely. Her heart began to pound, and her fingers snatched at her hair. Checking it, she whispered, Christ, Christ, wondering how bad she looked. The car came to a stop at the side door, and the horn sounded 4 short taps, as if this were a single Connie knew. She went into the kitchen and approached the door slowly, then hung onto the screen door, her bare toes curling down off the step. There were 2 boys in the car, and she now recognized the driver. He had shaggy, shabby black hair that looked crazy as a wig, and he was grinning at her. I ain't late, am I? He said. Who the hell do you think you are? Connie said. Told you I'd be out, didn't I? I don't even know who you are. She spoke sullenly, careful to show no interest or pleasure, and he spoke in a fast, bright monotone. Connie looked past him to the other boy, taking her time. He had fair brown hair, and a lock that fell onto his forehead. The sideburns gave him a fierce, embarrassed look, but so far he hadn't even bothered to glance at her. Both boys wore sunglasses. The driver's glasses were metallic and mirrored everything in miniature. You want to come for a ride? He said. Connie smirked and let her hair fall loose over one shoulder. Don't you like my car? New paint job, he said. Hey. What? You're cute. She pretended to fidget, chasing flies away from the door. Don't you believe me or what? He said. Look, I don't even know who you are, Connie said in disgust. Hey, Ellie's got a radio, see? Mine broke down. He lifted his friend's arm and showed her the little transitor radio the boy was holding. And now Connie began to hear the music. It was the same program that was playing inside the house. Bobby King? She said. I listen to him all the time. I think he's great. He's kind of great, Connie said reluctantly. Listen, the guy's great. He knows where the action is. Connie blushed a little, but because the glasses made it impossible for her to see just what this boy was looking at. She couldn't decide if she liked him or if he was just a jerk. So she dawdled in the doorway and it wouldn't come down or back inside. She said, What's all that stuff painted on your car? Can't you read it? He opened the door very carefully, as if he were afraid it might fall off. He slid out just as carefully, planting his feet firmly on the ground. The tiny metallic world in his glasses slowing down like gelatin hardening, and in the midst of it, Connie's bright green blouse. This here is my name to begin with, he said. Arnold Friend. It was written in tar-like black letters on the side. It was a drawing of a round, grinning face that reminded Connie of a pumpkin, except it wore sunglasses. I want to introduce myself. I'm Arnold Friend. That's my real name, and I'm gonna be your friend, honey. And inside the car is Ellie Oscar. He's kinda shy. Ellie brought his transmitter radio up to his shoulder and balanced it there. Now these numbers are our secret code, honey, Arnold Friend explained. He read off the numbers 33, 19, 17. and raised his eyebrows to her to see what she thought of that. But she didn't think much of it. The left rear fender had been smashed and around it was written on a gleaming gold background, "Done by crazy woman driver." Connie had to laugh at that. Arnold's friend was pleased at her laughter and looked up at her. "Around the other side's a lot more. You want to come and see them?" "No." "Why not?" "Why should I?" "Don't you want to see what's on the car?" "Don't you want to go for a ride?" "I don't know." "Why not?" "I got things to do." "Like what?" "Things." He laughed as if she just said something funny. He slapped his thighs, and he was standing in a strange way, leaning back against the car as if it were balancing himself. He wasn't tall, only an inch or so taller than she would be if she came down to him. Honey liked the way he dressed, which was the way all of them dressed. Tight fitted jeans stuffed into black scuffed boots, a belt that pulled his waist in and showed how lean he was, and a white pullover shirt that was a little soiled and showed the hard small muscles on his arms and shoulders. Sorry. He looked as if he probably did hard work, lifting and carrying things. Even his neck looked muscular, and his face was familiar somehow. The jaw and chin and cheeks slightly darkened as he hadn't shaved for a day or two. The nose long and hawk-like, sniffing as if she were a treat that he was going to gobble up and it was all a joke. "Connie, you ain't telling the truth. This is your day set aside for a ride with me, and you know it," he said, still laughing. The way he straightened and recovered from his fit of laughing showed that it had been fake. "How do you know what my name is?" she said, suspiciously. "It's Connie." "Maybe, and maybe not." "I know my Connie," he said, wagging his finger. Now she remembered him even better. Back at the restaurant, and her cheeks warmed at the thought of how she had sucked in her breath just at that moment she passed him. How she must have looked at him, and he had remembered her. "Ellie and I come out here especially for you," he said. "Ellie can sit in the back. How about it?" "Where?" "Where what?" "Where are we going?" He looked at her. He took off the sunglasses, and she saw how pale the skin around his eyes was, like holes that was not in shallow, but instead in light. His eyes were like chips of broken glass that catch the light in an amiable way. He smiled. It was as if the idea of going for a ride somewhere, to someplace, was a new idea for him. "Just for a ride, Connie, sweetheart." "I never said my name is Connie," she said. "But I know what it is. I know your friend and all about you. Lots of things," Arnold's friend said. He had not moved yet, but stood still leaning back against the side of his jalopy. "I took a special interest in you. Such a pretty girl, and found out all about you. Like I know your parents and our sisters are gone somewheres, and I know where and how long they're going to be gone. And I know who you were with last night, and your best girlfriend's name is Betty, right?" He spoke in a simple lilting voice, exactly as if it were reciting the words to a song. His smile assured her that everything was fine. In the car, Melly turned up the volume on his radio and didn't bother to look around them. "Ellie can sit in the back seat," Arnold's friend said. He indicated his friend with a casual jerk of his chin, as if Ellie did not count and she should not bother with him. "How did you find out all about that stuff?" Connie said. "Listen, Betty Schultz and Tommy Finch and Jimmy Pettinger and Nancy Pettinger," he said in chant. Raymond Stanley and Bob Hunter." "Do you know those kids?" "I know everybody. Look, you're kidding. You're not from around here." "Sure. But how come we never saw you before?" "Sure you saw me before," he said. He looked down at his boots as if he were a little offended. "You just don't remember." "I guess I'd remember you," Connie said. "Yeah?" He looked up at us, beaming. He was pleased. He began to mark time with the music from Ellie's radio, tapping his fists slightly together. Connie looked away from the smile to the car, which was painted so bright it almost hurt her eyes to look at it. She looked at the name, Arnold Friend, and up on the front fender was an expression that was familiar. "Man the Flying Saucers." It was an expression kids had used the year before, but She didn't use it this year. She looked at it for a while as if the words meant something to her that she did not yet know. What are you thinking about? Huh? My old friend demanded. Not worried about your hair blowing around in the car, are you? No. Think I maybe can't drive good? How do I know? You're a hard girl to handle. How come? He said. Don't you not know I'm your friend? Didn't you say you put my sign in the air when you walked by? What sign? My sign. He drew an X in the air, leaning out towards her. Maybe they were 10 feet apart. After his hand fell back to the side, the X was still in the air, almost visible. Connie let the door close and stood perfectly still inside it, listening to the music from her radio when the boys blend together. She stared at Arnold's friend. He stood there so stiffly relaxed, pretending to be relaxed, with one hand idly on the door handle as if he were keeping himself up that way, and had no intention of ever moving again. She recognized most things about him. The tight jeans that showed his thighs and buttocks, and the greasy leather boots, and the tight shirt. Even that slippery, friendly smile of his, that sleepy, dreamy smile all the boys used to get across ideas that they didn't want to put into words. She recognized all of this, and also the sing-song way he talked, slightly mocking, kidding, but serious and a little melancholy. And she recognized the way he tapped one fist against the other in homage to the perpetual music behind him. But all these things did not come together. She suddenly said, Hey, how are you? His smile faded. She could see then that he wasn't a kid. He was much older. 30, maybe more. At this knowledge, her heart began to pound faster. That's a crazy thing to ask. Can't you see I'm your own age? Like hell you are. Or maybe a couple years older. I'm 18. 18, she said doubtfully. He grinned to reassure her, and lines appeared at the corners of his mouth. His teeth were big and white. He grinned so broadly his sides became slits, and she saw how thick the lashes were. Thick and black, as if painted with black tar-like material. Then abruptly, he seemed to become embarrassed and looked over his shoulder at Ellie. Him? He's crazy, he said. Ain't he a riot? He's a nut, a real character. Ellie was still listening to the music. His sunglasses told nothing about what he was thinking. He wore a bright orange shirt unbuttoned, halfway to show his chest, which was pale, bluish chest, not muscular like Arnold Friend's. His shirt collar was turned up around, and the very tips of the collar pointed out past his chin as if they were protecting him. He was pressing the transmitter radio up against his ear and sat there, kind of dazed, right in the sun. He's kind of strange, Ellie said. Hey, she says you're kind of strange. Kind of strange, Arnold Friend cried. He pounded on the car to get Ellie's attention. Ellie turned for the first time, and Connie saw with shock that he wasn't a kid either. He had a fair, hairless face, cheeks reddened slightly as if the veins grew too close to the surface of the skin. The face of a 40-year-old baby. Sorry, I said 40. 40-year-old baby, bloody hell. Connie felt a wave of dizziness rise in her at the sight, and she stared at him as if waiting for something to change at the shock of the moment, make it all right again. Ellie's lips kept shaping words, mumbling about the words blasting in his ears. Maybe you two better go away, Connie said faintly. What? How come? Arnold Friend cried. We come out here to take you for a ride. It's Sunday. He had the voice of a man on the radio. It was the same voice, Connie thought. Don't you know it's Sunday all day? And honey, no matter who you were last night, today you're with Arnold Friend, and don't you forget it. Maybe you better step out here, he said, and the last was in a different voice. It was a little flatter, as if the heat was finally getting to him. No, I got things to do. Hey, you two better leave. We ain't leaving until you come with us. Like hell I am. Connie, don't fool around. I mean, don't fool around, he said, shaking his head. He laughed incredulously. He placed his sunglasses on top of his head, carefully, as if he were indeed wearing a wig, and brought the stems down behind his ears. Connie stared at him, another wave of dizziness and fear rising at her so that for a moment he wasn't even in focus, but was just a blur standing there against his old car. And she had the idea that he had driven up in the driveway all night, but had come from nowhere before that and belonged nowhere, and that everything about him, and even about the music, was so familiar to her was only half real. If my father comes and sees you, he ain't coming. He's at the barbecue. How do you know that? Aunt Tilly. Right now they're drinking, sitting around, he said vaguely, squinting as if he were staring all the way back over to Aunt Tilly's backyard. Then the vision seemed to be clear and he nodded energetically. Yeah, sitting around. There's your sister in the blue dress, huh? And the high heels. That's your poor sad bitch. Nothing like you, sweetheart. And your mother's helping some fat woman with the corn, and they're cleaning the corn, husking the corn. What fat woman? Connie cried. How do I know a fat woman? I will know every goddamn fat woman in the world, Arnold's friend laughed. Oh, that's Mrs. Hornsby. Who invited her? Connie said. She felt lightheaded. Her breath was coming quickly. She's too fat. I don't like him fat. I like them the way you are, honey, he said, smiling sleepily at her. They stared at each other for a while through the screen door. He said softly, now, what you're going to do is this. You're going to come out of that door. You're going to go sit up front with me. Ellie's going to sit in the back. The hell with Ellie, right? This isn't Ellie's date. You're my date. I'm your lover, honey. What? You're crazy. Yes, I'm your lover. You don't know what that is, but you will, he said. And I know that too. I know all about you. But look, it's real nice, and you couldn't ask for nobody better than me, or more polite. I always keep my word. I'll tell you how it is. I'm always nice at first. The first time, I'll hold you so tight you won't think you have to try to get away or pretend anything, because you know you can't. And I'll come inside where it's all a secret, and you'll give it to me, and you'll love me. Shut up! You're crazy, Connie said. She backed away from the door. She put her hands up against her ears as if she heard something terrible, something not meant for her. People don't talk like that. You're crazy, she muttered. Her heart was almost too big for her now. Sorry, it was almost too big now for her chest. It was pumping, made sweat break out all over her. She looked out to see Arnold's friend pause and then take a step towards the porch, lurching. He almost fell, but, like a clever drunken man, he managed to catch his balance. He wobbled in his high boots and grabbed hold of one of the porch posts that way. One of the porch posts. Honey, he said. You still listening? Get the hell out of here. Be nice, honey, listen. I'm gonna call the police. He wobbled again, and out the side of his mouth came a fast, spat curse, and a sigh not meant for her to hear. But even this Christ sounded forced, and he began to smile again. She watched the smile come, awkward as if he were smiling from inside a mask. His whole face was a mask. She thought wildly, tan down to his throat, but then running out as if he had plastered makeup on his face but forgotten about his throat. Honey, listen, here's how it is. I always tell the truth, and I promise you this. I ain't coming in that house after you. You better not. I'm gonna call the police if you don't. Honey, he said, talking right through her voice. Honey, I'm not coming in there, but you're coming out here. You know why? She was panting. The kitchen looked like a place she had never seen before. Some room she had run inside, but that wasn't good enough. She wasn't going to help her. The kitchen window never had a curtain after 3 years, and there was dishes in the sink for her to do. Probably. And if you ran your hand across the table, you'd probably feel something stick there. You listening, honey? Hey, gonna call the police? I'm sorry. As soon as you touch the phone, I don't need to keep my promise and you come inside. You don't want that. She rushed forward and tried to lock the door. Her fingers were shaking. But why lock it? Arnold's friend said gently, talking right into her face. It's just a screen door. It's just nothing. One of his boots was at a strange angle, as if his foot wasn't in it. It pointed out to the left, bent at the ankle. I mean, anybody can break through a screen door. In glass, in window, in glass, and wood, and iron, or anything else you need to do. Anybody at all, and especially Arnold Friend. Bloody hell, that's a hard name to say for me. Especially Arnold Friend. Arnold Friend. Fuck. If this place got lit up with a fire, honey, you'd come out running out into my arms. Right into my arms, safe at home, like you knew I was your lover. And stop fooling around. I don't mind a nice shag, but I don't like no fooling around. Part of those words were spoken with a slight rhythmic lip, and Connie somehow recognized them. The echo of a song from last year about a girl rushing into her boyfriend's arms and coming home again. Connie stood barefoot on the linoleum floor, staring at him. What do you want? She whispered. I want you. What? Seen you that night and thought, that's the one. Yes, sir. I never needed to look anymore. But my father's coming back. He's coming to get me. I had to wash my hair first. She spoke in a dry, rapid voice. Hardly raising it for him to hear. No, your daddy's not coming. And yes, you had to wash your hair. And you washed it for me. It's nice and shiny and all for me. I thank you, sweetheart, he said with a mock bow. But again, he almost lost his balance. He had to bend and adjust his boot. Evidently, his feet did not go all the way down. The boots must have been stuffed with something so that he would seem taller. Connie stared at him, and behind him at Ellie in the car, who seemed to be looking off towards Connie's right, into nothing. Then Ellie said, pulling the words out of the air, and after another as if he were just discovering them. You want me to pull out the phone? Shut your mouth and keep it shut, Arnold's friend said. His face was red from bending over or maybe from embarrassment because of Connie had seen his boots. This ain't none of your business. What? What are you doing? What do you want? Connie said. If I call the police, they'll get you. They'll arrest you. Promise was not to come in unless you touched that phone. And I'll keep that promise, he said. He resumed his erect position and tried to force his shoulders back. He sounded like a hero in a movie, declaring something important. But he spoke too loudly, and it was as if he were speaking to someone behind him. I ain't made plans for coming into that house where I don't belong. But just for you to come out to me, the way you should. Don't you know who I am? You're crazy, she whispered. She backed away from the door, but did not want to go into another part of the house as if this would give him permission to come through the door. What do you do? You're crazy, you. Huh? What are you saying, honey? Her eyes darted everywhere in the kitchen. She could not remember She could not remember what it was. This room. This is how it is, honey. You come out, and we'll drive away. Have a nice ride. But if you don't come out, we're gonna wait till your people come home, and then they're all gonna get it. You want that telephone pulled out? Ellie said. He held the radio away from his ear and grimaced, as if without the radio the air was just too much for him. I told you to shut up, Ellie, Arnold Friend said. You're deaf. You got a hearing aid, right? Fix yourself up. This little girl's no trouble, and she's gonna be nice to me. So Ellie, keep to yourself. This ain't your date, right? Don't hem in on me. Don't hog, don't crush, don't bird dog, don't trail me, he said in a rapid, meaningless voice, as if he were running through all the expressions he learned, but was no longer sure which one of them was in style. Then rushing on the new ones, making them up as his eyes closed. Don't crawl under my fence, don't squeeze in my chipmunk hole, don't sniff my glue, suck my popsicle, keep your greasy fingers on yourself. He shaded his eyes and peered in at Connie, who was backed against him at the table. Don't mind him, honey. He's just a creep. He's a dope, right? I'm the boy for you. And like I said, you come out here nice, like a lady, give me your hand, and nobody else gets hurt. I mean, your nice old bald-headed daddy, and your mummy, and your sister in her high heels. Because listen, why bring them into this? Leave me alone, Honey whispered. Hey, you know that old woman down the road? The one with the chickens and stuff? You know her? She's dead. Dead? What? You know her? Arnold's friend said. She's dead. Don't you like her? She's dead. She isn't here anymore. But don't you like her? I mean, you got something against her? Some grudge or something? Then his voice dipped, as if he were conscious of his weakness. He touched the sunglasses perched on the top of his head as if to make sure they were still there. Now, you be a good girl. What are you going to do? They're just two things, or maybe three, Arnold friend said. But I promise, it won't last long. And you'll like me the way you get to like the people you're close to. You will. It's all over for you here. So come on out. You don't want your people in any trouble, do you? She turned and bumped against a chair or something, hurting her leg, but she ran into the back room and picked up the telephone. Something roared in her ear, a tiny roaring, and she was so sick with fear that she could do nothing but listen to it. The telephone was clammy and very heavy, and her fingers broke down to the dial, but were too weak to touch it. She began to scream into the phone, into the roaring. She cried out. She cried for her mother. She felt her breath start jerking back and forth in her lungs as if it were something Arnold's friend was stabbing her with again and again with no tenderness. A noisy, sorrowful wailing rose all about her, and she was locked inside it the way she was locked inside the house. After a while, she could hear again. She was sitting on the floor with her wet back against the wall. Arnold's friend was saying from the door, "That's a good girl. Put the phone back." She kicked the phone away from her. "No, honey, pick it up, put it back right." She picked it up, put it back. The dial tone stopped. "That's a good girl. Now you come outside." She was hollow with what had been fear, but what was now just emptiness. All that screaming had blasted it out of her. She sat, one leg cramped under her, and deep inside her brain was something like a pinpoint of light that kept going and would not let her relax. She thought, "I'm not going to see my mother again," she thought. "I'm not going to sleep in my bed again." Her bright green blouse was all wet. Arnold's friend said, in a gentle, loud voice that was like a stage voice, "The place where you came from ain't there anymore, and where you had in mind to go is canceled out. This place you are now, inside your daddy's house, is nothing but a cardboard box that can knock down any time. You know that, and always did know it. You hear me?" She thought, "I have to go. I have got to think. I have got to know what to do." That's not good grammar. We'll go out to a nice field out in the country where it smells so nice and it's sunny." Arnold's friend said, "I'll have my arms tight around you so you won't need to try to get away, and I'll show you what love is like, what it does. The hell with this house. It looks solid, all right," he said. He ran a fingernail down the screen, and the noise did not make Honey shiver, as if it would the day before. "Now put your hand on your heart, honey. Feel that? That feels solid too, but we know better. Be nice to me. Be sweet like you can be. Be sweet like you can, because what else is there for a girl like you but to be sweet and pretty and give in and get away before her people come back." He felt her pounding heart. Her hands seemed to enclose it. She thought for the first time in her life that it was nothing but that was hers, that belonged to her, but was just pounding. A living thing inside this body that wasn't really hers either. "You don't want them to get hurt," Arnold's friend went on. "Now get up. Get up all by herself." She stood. "Now turn this way. That's right. Come over here to me. Ellie, put that away. Didn't I tell you? You dope. You miserable, creepy dope," Arnold's friend said. His words were not angry, but only part of an incantation. The incantation was kindly. "Now come out through the kitchen to me, honey, and let's see a smile. Try it. You're a brave, sweet little girl, and now they're eating corn and hot dogs cooked to bursting over an outdoor fire. And they don't know one thing about you, and never did. And honey, you're better than them, because not a one of them would have done this for you. Connie felt the linoleum under her feet. It was cool. She brushed her hair back out of her eyes. Arnold frowned to let go of her close tentatively and opened up his arms to her. His elbows pointed in towards each other, and his wrists limp to show that this was an embarrassed embrace and a little mocking. He didn't want to make her self-conscious. She pulled out her hand against the screen. She watched back herself. She watched herself push the door back. Oops. Fucking hell. I'm sorry. I'm having difficulty speaking. She pushed her hand against the screen. She watched herself push the door slowly open as if she were backstage somewhere in the other doorway, watching this body and this head of long hair moving out in the sun where Arnold's friend waited. My sweet blue-eyed girl, he said in a half-sung sigh that had nothing to do with her brown eyes, but was taken up just by the same of that vast sunlight. By the vast sunlight reaching the land behind him and on all sides of him. So much land that Connie had never seen before and did not recognize, except to know that she was going to it. The end. Well, that was a very interesting story. It's from 1991, but part of it seems to take place almost like in the 60s or 50s. But it was a very interesting story. I mean, it was very descriptive for the most part, but it seemed to the supernatural elements seemed to come in later. But that was very interesting. Glad I read it. Like I said, that was my first time reading it. It was very interesting, like I said. Probably want to do some more research. Oh, never mind. It was first published in 1966. That's why I felt familiar. That was just a copyright on the version I was reading in like the 90s. Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, I think I'll probably want to do some more research on that later. So just give me 1 second. I just need to take some water. I'm sure you could tell that my voice was starting to crack a little bit at the end there. So I apologize for that. Let me just grab it. Where did I put it? There it is. Okay, there we go. There we go. Hydrate yourself if you can, folks. There we go. That's better. Right, so I have one more story prepared for tonight. So, it is a self-published work, but I've actually heard some good things about it. So this will be my first time reading this one as well. And yeah, I believe, yeah, it's from 2012, so it's about 12 years old at this point. I believe it was originally adapted from a green text, actually, but I think it's been formatted a bit so it can be read as a proper story, but it still has some green text elements. But I will be keeping in that theme. But yeah, this will be my first time reading this one as well, so just give me a second while I prep it. Shoot. Sorry. Balls. There we go. So yes, this will be my first time reading this story as well, but it sounded very interesting, so I'm excited to see what it has entailed in it. But without much further ado, actually let me get a little bit more water. A little bit more water before I read this, just to make sure my throat isn't getting. There we go. This will probably be our last story of the night. Don't know how long it is exactly, but it should do as well. It should do as well. Right then, but without further ado, time for our final story of the evening, Anansi's Goat Man. Here's my story. Be me, be 16, be black and have a family down in Alabama. They farm and own a huge amount of land down in Huntsville. Uncle owns a big house and a bunch of trailers they put out in the woods for hunting or camping. Down south, cousins suggest that we go out there to camp. No, I'm a city kid from Chicago, so they tease the fuck out of me. Collect food, kill a pig, some chickens, and bring necessities to camp out for a few days. We get to the camp and it's obvious something is weird. The air has a weird electric smell right before a storm, like ozone. We think nothing of it, and unpack and go to a little creek to swim for a few hours. All of a sudden, some older white guy and a white teenager come out of the bushes. He had a shotgun in the crook of his arms and said hello and asked us what we're doing this far back in the woods. Tell him about my uncle, who he knows, and say we're camping out. He tells us we need to be real careful out here, stick together, because there was a big animal in the woods. His son, who is my age, asks if he can stay there and hang out with us. He says okay. I'm gonna stop green texting because this story is fairly long and the format is hard to write. So we end up playing football. Sticking around with me, there's the white kid, Tanner, 5 of my cousins, and then 4 of their friends. In total, there were 5 girls and 6 boys. We were all around 15 to 17, and we ended up just sticking the day away. Eventually, we head back to the camp and pull out some stuff from a campfire. Even though the trailers both had kitchenettes, Tanner says that his family's property sits up against my uncle's. He wants to run home and ask his dad if he can come out camping with us. My cousin Rooster says he's gonna go with him since it's gonna get dark soon. One of the girls also wants to tag along. It's about 7 o'clock and it's starting to get pretty dark. They grab flashlights and take the trail towards Tan's property. The rest of us chill. We make s'mores, drink, kiss on the girls. About 30 or 40 minutes later, there's a smell of ozone again. You could have noticed it over the scented fire we had started. This really nasty, coppery smell, like right after you had a nosebleed and stopped. It wasn't exactly dried blood, but it was that metallic back of your throat smell. We immediately think that it's some kind of electrical malfunction, or that someone left the hot plate on or some shit. We search the trailer and nothing's on, but we can all smell it. All of a sudden, we can hear people booking it down the path towards us. Rooster, Tan, and the girl all come running into the clearing, out of breath. They don't even break stride. They all run into the trailer, right by where the fire is. We all get the fuck out of there into the trailers. They end up calming down. Even Rooster is crying his fucking eyes out at this point. All the while, the fire is guttering lower and lower. So my other cousin says, fuck it. They're about to go outside to get the generator out of the shed through the trailer. Tanner goes, fuck no. Lock the front door. Ain't nobody else goes outside. He's been crying too. His eyes are bloodshot and puffy and his hands are dirty as shit. He goes on to tell us that they went up to his house. His father said, sure, he could go out camping, but to make sure that they were careful on the way back. And that maybe they should take one of the hunting rifles just in case. Evidently, Tanner had seen something in their yard a few days before. One of the pigs had been ripped up and half eaten. They assumed it was just some big cat or coyote, even though they don't usually fuck with live animals. Tanner went upstairs, packed his stuff, and told his dad they would be okay without the rifle because coyotes avoid them. Then they started walking back towards where we were camping. Brewster finally stops crying and shaking. The girl already had, but was now just staring out the window with a dumb look on her face. He says they had gone halfway to the woods towards the camp when they started to hear shit in the forest. It was almost pitch black for this time, so they weren't sure at all what the fuck it was. The girl says that she heard something in the bushes right off the trail. They all beamed their flashlights over there, and there was someone standing in there in the woods in a little hollow. Rooster said they shouted at him and told him that he was scaring the fuck out of them and what a dick he was. He says that's when they realized the guy was facing away from them. They kept walking and they started smelling the nasty coppery ozone smell. They say that they look off into the forest on the opposite side and there's a dude standing there, too, back there, slightly closer to the path. So now they start power walking, and as Tan keeps going, I should have taken that fucking rifle. And as they're telling the story, the smell is still super strong, even inside the cabin. They say that after that they started walking faster, a kind of low gibbering as they began coming from both sides of the wood. As they booked it back towards the trailer, the girl said she flashed her light out to the side of them and saw something jerking itself through the woods. The gibbering just got louder and louder, and when they could see the light from our campfire, something had come out of the woods about 40 yards behind them onto the track. Then they just ran out as fast as they could to the trailer. So we're out in the fucking woods. We're assuming at this point it's some rednecks or some shit trying to fuck with us. All of a sudden, my other cousin, Junior, starts going on about how he went to school with a native man that was telling him about the goat man or some shit. We'd probably tell him to shut the fuck up because we don't need any spooky talk right now. But he just keeps going on and on about how it's the fucking goat man and how we're scared of his woods and blah blah blah. Now at the time, I had never heard of this goat man or any of that. But then a couple of years ago, the year before I graduated from college, I had a memo from sorry, I had a memo sorry, memo okay, sorry. I had a memo from a roommate and ended up asking him about it. To sum it up, it's basically any fucking man with the head of a goat. And you can shape shift and get among groups of people to terrorize them. It's also supposed to be a kind of like a Wendigo. It's bad mojo to even talk about and even worse if you see it. Keep in mind, I didn't know this back when I was 16. So my cousin is going. The goat man's gonna get in and fucking get us. Now the girls are all terrified, and my cousins and I are all fucking trying to figure out whether these are some hillbillies or or just an animal. All of a sudden, the smell goes away. To this day, I haven't even experienced anything like it. Obviously, smells usually fade away and lessen, but it was literally just there 1 second and not the next. So it's after an hour, making it around 9 or 10. We stop shitting bricks enough to go back outside and stoke the fire again. We figure it's just some assholes trying to fuck with us, so we don't go back home, because we think if we do, they'll chase us to the woods or some other crazy shit. Nothing else weird happens that night. We stay another night, and for the main part of that night, nothing happens. But about 1 in the morning, we'll be outside, getting drunk and telling ghost stories. As someone is finishing some too spooky story, I don't remember what it was on about, the smell comes back. It's so fucking strong that one of the girls literally started to vomit. I stand up and you can actually feel how clammy the air is. I say we should get inside if this isn't right. We should have just fucking left. We all go back inside and we're standing around. My cousin keeps going on and on about how it's the goat. My other cousin, Brewster, tries to shut him the fuck up, and all the while, I'm just feeling that something is wrong. I can't figure out what the fuck it is. Bloody hell, they're sweating and saying fuck a lot. Then again, I can't really judge them for that. But, regardless. We end up sitting there for a while. The smell is just as strong, and we're terrified and all huddled in this camp. We end up cooking broth for everyone because nobody wants to go outside. It's one of those packs with 4 broths. We have a total of 3 packs, and I grill them up on the stove and give everybody a hot dog, and then I got mine. After a while, one of my cousins gets up and goes over to the pot to get another one. He starts grumbling about how I got 2 broths and everyone else only got 1. And I look at him like he's fucking stupid. I tell him that everyone only got 1 because there were only 12 broths, and that if he wanted more, he should open up a new pack and cook some more. That's when the girl that had just been out with Brewster and just starts screaming, "Oh Jesus, oh Lord, get it out!" She's crying and shivering, and then it dawned on my cousin standing up what the fuck is wrong. Me and him both glance around the room, and I feel my heart fucking sink. I run the fuck out of the cabin, and the girl runs out with us. The trailer door is banging against the side of the trailer. Everybody books it out. One of my cousin's friends asked what the fuck was wrong. I started telling him. There's only 11 now. I shit you not, my cousin verified. They had 12 people in the cabin. But being that everybody didn't really know each other that well, nobody had noticed the whole fucking time that there was an extra person. And then I realized that I just kind of noticed that something was off. You know how when you're dicking around having a good time, like you don't really sweat the small shit, and you don't always keep track of certain stuff? I'm dead sure that someone else had been in that trailer with us, and that and that they had been there at least a fucking day, eating with us. And what makes it worse is that I couldn't figure out who it was because I don't think anyone actually interacted with the other person slash the goat. The girl kept praying to Jesus, and we're all sitting outside. Eventually, we get big ass sticks and go back to the cab, but there's nobody in there. Count again. There's 11 people. We go back into the trailer and lock the door. We explain what the fuck happened. The girl says that she realized too, and that she was about to say something. The person sitting next to her grabbed her leg hard, leaned over towards her, and said something that she couldn't understand. So we were all pretty much scared as fuck as we huddled together, and I fall asleep. When I wake up, the sun is just coming up, and half the people are asleep, and the other half are packing their shit up. We all want to walk back home, but like four people want to stay until the sun is all the way up. And some people think that we're just fucking around and still want to stay at the trailers. I just want to get the fuck out of these woods. The girl's name was Kira, and that the one that the goat man had touched. Anyway, I asked her if she really thinks it was something bad, and she says that just wants to go home and that she doesn't want to be on these woods she doesn't want to be on these woods alone for another night. So we decided to split up. The four that want to go can go, but I have to stay behind because I have the keys to the cabin and it's my uncle's and I have to lock up. I'm super pissed at this point because I feel like people are taking this shit seriously, and I definitely didn't want to be out in these woods for another night. I spent the rest of the day trying to convince the rest of the guys, now four girls, four guys, to get the fuck out of Dodge. Tanner leaves with them to go get the rifle and says he's going to be back, so there's just 7 of us left by 4 p.m. At around 5 p.m., he hasn't made it back yet, and we're getting extremely fucking antsy. The only reason I stopped begging them to leave is because he went to get a gun. Around 5:30 p.m. or so, the one cousin that did stay says that the girl Kiara is outside. We all look outside, and sure enough, she's standing by the fire pit with her back to the cabin. I'm thinking to myself, if she was so fucking scared, why the hell would she come back? Then I got this nasty feeling in my gut. Keep in mind, the whole time, the coppery smell has been gone. Now I go ahead and smell just a twinge of it. I say this to the rest of them. Everybody. And these are the people that wanted to stay in the fucking wood after we had the goddamn gold out with us. They're laughing at me and asking me if I said this to scare them. I'm looking at them like I'm not fucking bullshitting you at all right now, and ask them why the fuck would I play like that. So one of the girls goes outside to get Kiara. Well, Kiara, she gets halfway to her and stops cold. Kiara is heaving. I don't know how the fuck to describe it. Sort of like if someone with their backs turned was laughing without actually making any sound. It was this fact that made me realize that there was not a fucking sound in this whole woods. It was dead silent. This was like late September, so it was still fairly hot, but super chilly some days, too. You could usually hear big ass geese honking or some kinds of birds or squirrels chit chatting. I step out the door and tell the girl to come back to the fucking trailer right goddamn now. She backs up into it and we lock the fucking door. We pull down all the shades except one. I put a guy there and chair to watch Kiara. Well, she stands there for about another 20 minutes or so. Eventually the guy turns to say that she's still there, and there's a huge fucking bang on the door. We all jump the fuck up and scramble around the living room of the trailer. The banging is super loud. My cousin is holding one of the girls, and the other two girls are kind of giggling with, bloody hell, the story cut out. Sorry, just my webpage just reloaded. Give me a second to fix this. Bloody hell. Problem with reading on a mobile device. Sorry about that, just give me 1 second. Technical difficulties. Buddy. What was wrong with my phone? Okay, almost there. 1 second. go. We all jump the fuck up and scramble around the living room of the trailer. The banging is super loud. My cousin is holding one of the girls. The other two are kind of giggling with nervous laughter, and me and the other two guys are shitting bricks. Then we hear Tan. He's screaming, "Let me the fuck in! Stop fucking playing!" We go over to the door and open it, and he stumbles in with a rifle. There's nobody else outside. Evidently, he had walked up to the campsite. Nothing weird happened before us, but he had seen a girl. Mind you, he said it was not Kiara standing there. When he had gotten to the edge of the clearing, she turned toward him with a slack-jawed look, just staring him down, slowly tracking him as he walked around the outside of the clearing towards the camp. He said it wasn't until he was almost halfway to the trailer that he realized that she was getting closer. She had started off by the fire, and without even seeing him move, she had been turning, inching closer. He said that he just ran the rest of the way back to the cabin, thinking it would open. When he got to the door and it was locked, he turned and it was about a half distance to the door. He looks around the room and gets super pale. Pulls me to the side and whispers into my ear, "You know, there's only 7 of us in here, right?" I get that feeling when your stomach drops to your nuts. I had been back inside the trailer and we were sorting things out of who was going where, and then when we were all then when we all went outside to talk earlier in the day, it had just slipped right back in. We looked out the window and there's nobody there, so we were counting. Then they go over and ask everybody how many people were here earlier. Everybody says 8. I say, "Well, how many are here now?" They all do the count, and realize now only 7 are in the cabin. Tan had bought a couple of boxes of ammo in his rifle. He told his dad that there was some kind of animal in the forest because he didn't think he would believe him. He said it was a goat. He says that his cousin was supposed to be coming down in a few hours and out in the morning we can all go back to this place, and his cousin will drive us home. Now, I'm really fucking terrified, but at least I can feel better because we can be in America and shoot whatever the fuck is out there if it comes back. But then my cousin gets into this huge argument with one of the girls because she thinks that I'm trying to be funny about them. She's getting really scared and thinks I'm not funny. He keeps telling people that I'm not that kind of person, and she says, "Well, how do we know the girl wasn't just Tanner with the wig, or if it's really the goat man? How do we know that this is the real Tanner? The goat man didn't just kill Tanner in the woods and take his gun." So we get into a huge fucking argument about this, where me and Tan are like, we could seriously be in danger because at the very least, someone has been sneaking themselves into our fucking trailer without us knowing and mingling with us. And at worst, something bad is in that forest fucking with us. One of the girls is crying and saying she wants to go right now. And we're trying to tell her that she shouldn't because none of us are walking through the woods in the middle of the night. At this point, the sun is starting to go down. It's getting a little cloudy out. We ate something and turned on the radio for a while, but we can't really get a station out there, he said. So we turn it off, and about the time that his cousin shows up. He was like 19, I think. Now the sun is just barely over the horizon. He said that he has one of those heavy-duty lantern flashlights with another rifle. He walks up to the trailer and we whisper to Tan, asking if he's sure it's his cousin. He says yes. The guy looks behind him and all around the camp, then walks in. He kind of glances at all of us and looks a little confused. Then he says, "Where's your other little buddy at? I figured she would meet me at the cabin. Is she a little slow or something?" He also asked whether we had been cooking blood in the cabin because it smelled like blood and hot pans all the way up the trail. We were all like, "Fucking no," and we asked him what the fuck he's talking about with the girl he saw. He had come down the same trail Tan had been using, and he had been coming down the same trail Tan had been using, and found one of Yausa's guy's buddies standing in the middle of the trail, looking at him slack-jawed. He had asked her a bunch of questions, but all she did was look at him. Then she smiled, and he said he kept walking. She couldn't seem to keep up with him and kept lagging a little behind. He He said he asked her if she was hurt or something and if she needed any help, but she had continued to stare. Eventually, he turned around a bend in the trail, and when he went back to see if she was okay, the trail was empty. He'd assumed that she had taken some shortcut through the woods to our trailer. We tell him the whole story of what's been going on. I half expected him to say we were full of shit, or say we were full of shit, but he just listened and then sat on one of the couches in the living room. Tanner's cousins get back to the girl. He says that when she had been trying, bloody hell, I'm sorry. He says that when she had kept trying to lag behind him, it had kind of weirded him the fuck out, so he kept trying to keep her in front of him. But no matter how slow he walked, she was always lagging a little behind. He smelled this nasty smell, and it got stronger as he got to the camp. Eventually, it got really strong. She had said something really low that he didn't catch, and when he turned around, she had been right the fuck up on him. He stepped back from her. It was at this point he asked her if she was really okay. If she wasn't, he offered to carry her back the rest of the way. She just kept staring. He said he reached out for her as if to grab her on the shoulder, but he must have misjudged this because she was off to the side of where he had put his hand, like she moved while he was looking dead at her. So at this point, we know this shit's real. Unless Tan is playing a joke, which we can tell he's not, because he's almost pissing his pants. They load up their rifles and we eat some more, and we just kind of sit around until 11 p.m. To this fucking day, every time I think about this, I really just pray to God that it's some huge prank that my cousin played on me, and we just never revealed it. So I would shit myself for the rest of my life. At around 11, the stinking copper turned into an actual gross blood-like smell, like cooked blood and singed hair. Tan and his cousin, Reese, get the fuck up and instantly grab their rifles. Just like a half knocking, half clawing at the door. And I shit you not, there's this voice. It sounds like when you see those YouTube cats and dogs owners teach them how to talk, as it were. It says in a halting, weirdly toned voice, "Fucking stop fucking playing." It made my fucking nuts creep against my body. One of the girls just starts crying and calling for Jesus. It was so fucking obviously not a person talking, and it didn't have the right cadence. There's some shit I never realized until that moment, but all the people have a certain cadence when they talk, no matter what language. All people have a certain kind of rhythm when talking. This shit didn't have any kind of cadence or rhythm. One of those YouTube cats, that's what the fuck it sounded like outside the door. It sounded, there's a link that, takes to like one of those like cat videos. It sounded like this almost, just not funny. Sorry for being on a tangent, but you can't imagine how this shit sounded. Then you can't imagine how fucked up this whole situation was. So now I'm in full terror mode. We keep yelling outside, "Who is it? Stop fucking around, man." And it just keeps saying, "In," or "Let me the fuck in," for almost 15 minutes. Then the smell goes away for a while, and for the next hour or so, we can hear some bass creeping around the woods and shit. Every couple of minutes, it comes back to the door and says something. Finally, the smell fades away around 2 in the morning. Reese says, "Man, fuck this," opens the door and walks outside with his rifle. Fires a shot into the air and says something to the effect of, "In the name of Jesus Christ, go away." He fires 2 more times, and then from the woods, right up against the river across from the trailer, it sounds like something is still gibbering and hooting. Then it starts screaming. It sounds almost like a woman and a cat in a bag screaming together. Like, seriously, I have never heard any shit like that. We can hear the brush over that way start to shake. Reese fires over the tree lines and then starts backing up into the building. We lock the door and we can still hear this shit keening and screaming. Reese says something had come out of the bushes, super low to the ground, and was crawling towards the camp. Towards the cabin. He had shot at it. Pretty much, that was how the rest of the night was. Literally constant screaming for the next 2 hours, and shit moving out into the tree line, but he never came back up to the cabin until everyone had finally fallen asleep. Tan had been sitting in a chair watching the door with his rifle. Nobody else heard or saw this, and he told me 2 days later after the whole thing was over. He said he had been nodding off after the screams and noises had finally stopped. He had almost been asleep when he saw someone finally come out of the bathroom and lay down in the middle of the floor to go to sleep. He just assumed it was one of us, and the guy had nodded off. Then he said he kind of realized something was wrong, and while pretending to be sleeping, he counted us. There were 9 people in the cabin. He didn't want to try shooting at the fucking thing and have kill us all then, right there and then, or have Reese wake up and start shooting and us kill ourselves. So he just stayed awake all night, pretending to be asleep. He said sometimes it would stand up and kind of do this weird jittery thing or heave like it was laughing, but then it would lay back down. The story closes pretty weak because from my perspective, nothing happened. When I woke up, I noticed that Tan was a little jittery and that he was avoiding looking at all of us. But we ate some breakfast, packed up, and started walking to his house. He stayed last in the cabin and said he'd lock up and bring me my uncle's keys. He told us just to start walking and that he'd catch up, which I really didn't want to fucking do. We got up a little bit onto the path, and when he came running up, we would just jog back to his house, and his cousin took us home. There was a window in the bathroom. Tan had gone back to lock up, and we looked in there. We were too stupid to lock the screenless window, and it was fucking up when he went in there. I'm guessing it had been doing that all along, waiting for us to fall asleep or slip up and then getting in among us. It walked with us all the goddamn way back to his house, and then he said it lagged to the back of the group and looked him dead in the eyes before walking into the woods. The end. Well, that was an interesting story. I mean, very much a creepypasta, but for the most part, it's effective. I think the writing was a little bit, heavy on the swearing, but what can you do? Let me just change. There we go. Back to my normal voice for now. Right. So, those were 3 scary stories for the night. Have some classics, have some more experimental ones, and of course some good old-fashioned creepypastas. But I believe this is what I'll be calling it for the night. Hopefully y'all can sleep alright. Hopefully y'all won't be too, not traumatized, but I guess too worked up that you won't be able to sleep properly. But hey, I'm sure y'all will be fine. But this is where I must make my leave. I have various matters to attend to, and it is getting a bit later for me. There we go. But I thank you all for joining me this fine evening, and if anyone is ever watching this VOD, much appreciated. Feel free to follow, subscribe, whatever you want to do, and I much appreciate you all. But yes, this is going to be Val E Song signing out for the night. I hope you have a wonderful evening, and take care, y'all. Stay safe, and I'll see you all next time. Oh, one more thing. I'm likely going to be streaming tomorrow. It'll probably be around, I'm not fully sure, probably 4 p.m., 5 p.m. my time. So 5 p.m. like EST, maybe 2 p.m. PST, something like that, around that. Not fully sure, but yeah, I'll be playing Don't Starve Together with one of my friends. She's been hankering to stream with me for a while, so that'll be fun. I'll be getting the details more spittled out tomorrow then. But yep, like I said, this is where I'll be calling it. So, if anyone's ever watching this VOD in the future, much appreciated. And this is going to be Val E Song signing out. Have a damn good one, folks, and take care. I'll see you all next time. Ciao,